Hi, everybody.
I think
Is
you
this
got
on? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Yeah? How's everybody today?
Good, how are you?
Good, doing wonderful. How's conference so far? Great. Yeah? You guys learning a lot?
Oh, come on, you guys can do better than that.
Yeah,
Like a
come
woo!
on. Welcome to Boise. Boise is our little gym. It was hidden at one time, but everybody knows about it and everybody's moving here. So anybody wants to move here, you guys are more than welcome. I am Rhiannon, and I am with LiveRes. I've been with LiveRes for the past 6.5 years. And then we also have Mr. Ryan Norton from Rubaru. So he's going to be doing most of the presentation. I'm just here for support.
Unless I start crying.
No, but if honestly, if you guys have any questions within the LiveRes or Rubaru or communication, that's what we're going to be going through today. So welcome.
Perfect. Well, hello, everybody. This is hopefully going to be somewhat fun and not too serious for you guys, because all we're going to talk about is emails and texting today and why we want to do that. So, but yes, my name is Ryan. I used to be at LiveRes, so some of you guys are very familiar to me. So I recently changed over to work with Rubaru. They stole me away. I miss LiveRes, but I'm enjoying my new role over at Rubaru.
I was very mad at him, by the way, but
She wouldn't talk to me for like 6 months.
truth.
So, but yes, it's super excited to be back here talking with LiveRes partners. You guys are awesome. I've been to 5 other conferences like this, and this one still by far is the most fun. And I think I've been hugged more at this conference than any other conference. So thanks for that. It's been years since we've been able to do that, right? So, so what I want to start off a little bit here, I know we've heard this before, but why do we communicate with guests? What do you guys do to communicate? Why do you try to get information to your guests? What do you do? Why do you do it? And by the way, if you participate, I have T-shirts over here.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I do it so I can jump ahead of a problem.
Okay. Trying to get ahead of a problem. Okay, so that there stays comfortable. Perfect.
Simple experience.
Experience, I like that one. Simple. We're going to talk about simplifying a little bit today. So you're shaking your head yes. What do you got?
We send out, I think probably a lot of you do. We send out, door codes and information about the community, and it's just kind of a useful way to stay in touch.
How many of you get calls from your guests because they didn't get any of those emails that you sent them? Well, that's sad.
They didn't read them.
Or they didn't. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can get them to read it and things like that. So one thing in this industry, it's hard, right? We've been in here. Some of us are new. Some of us are veterans. And I think the reason we stay doing this day in, day out, 7 days a week, is because of relationships, right? When I decided to make a change over to Rubaru, I was looking at some other companies as well outside of the industry, but I didn't want to go, right? I was exhausted with the industry a little bit because of how fast-paced it is. I was thinking I wanted a different pace, but it just like gets in your blood, right? And I think it's because of the relationships I have with all of you guys. You guys have a relationship with your guests, with your teams, all of those kind of things. So I like this quote: communication may be the one thing that makes or breaks a relationship. And we see this in our businesses, we see this in our family life, we see this all over the place, right? If we're not going to communicate, I'm a horrible communicator. My wife will tell you that. I don't communicate very well. So it can mess up some things, right? So making sure that we're communicating properly is very, very important, okay? Now, for you as property managers, what are we trying to get out of the guests, right? So there is this reciprocity that we're trying to communicate. We're giving all this stuff, but we want stuff back, right? And I think these are some of the things that good communication can do. We're always looking for returning guests, right? We're looking to get referrals from those guests that we provided this great service to. Direct bookings. We talk about this all the time in this industry. Direct bookings are very, very important. Reviews. Do you ever think about communicating to get better reviews? Right? 5-star reviews are very important. We send stuff to people for reviews. We're always worried, oh my, is it going to be a 3-star? Is it going to be a 5-star? Right? So that communication can really increase that 5-star rating as well. And brand loyalty. I mean, that's something that's somewhat difficult nowadays with everybody going to Airbnb and VRBO and other places. How do we continue to build that brand loyalty? And in my mind, I think it's of how we communicate with them, okay? Now, let's not go here yet. So I was on vacation earlier this year. I want to tell you guys a story about this. So I took my family. I got 4 kids. If anybody knows me, I have a 13, 11, a 10-year-old, and an 8-year-old. So it's a little bit crazy in my house sometimes. I work all day. My wife does it all. It's not really that crazy for me. But for me, I'm in Utah, and I went out to an island on the East Coast. I won't name it, so I don't make fun of them. No one's here from there. So, but I flew over there. It's like a 6-7 hour flight for me to get over there from Utah. I get there, I land. I waited in a rental car thing for like 3 hours because rental cars right now are crazy. And then I drove out 2 hours to get there. And this is how a lot of guests have to do this, right? So some of our remote destinations, we have to drive. It's all this time. My kids are tired. They're cranky. So I booked about 3 weeks before I went on vacation to this. It was a work vacation, so I was out there doing some prospecting as well. And I got 13 emails in a 3-week time span. 13 emails, okay? Now, because of COVID and some other things, I think they've been trying to adjust their communication a little bit. So I got one email that told me, go into the office to check in. I got another one that says, hey, we have remote check-in now. You can just go straight to the house. And I'm like, which one am I supposed to do, right, as a guest? And I've been in the industry for over 10 years. I should know better, right? But I got on vacation and I didn't know better. My brain shut off. I think that's what happens to many of our guests, right? And we get there, we pull in, and I'm thinking, oh, I know where it is. It's in my email for the door code. I get there, jump out, I have my bags. My kids are running around, screaming. They're trying to get in the house. I'm like, would you just wait, right? I'm getting frustrated. And I'm looking through my phone, and finally, about 10 minutes, it felt like 10 minutes. It was probably only a couple of minutes, but it felt like 10 minutes. I finally find the door code buried in the middle of one of these emails, right? Finally went in. We had a great vacation, right? But that first initial experience for me staying with this, and this was one of the top property managers out there that I stayed in, has about 500 homes that they deal with, was rough for me. And so my perspective of that property manager changed, right? Instead of starting my experience on a 5-star note, I started back on like 3, right? So they had they need to gain some traction there. So I like to highlight that experience because it dawned on me during that time of we as property managers spend a lot of time creating emails. They're beautiful. We put a lot of effort in here. But do we ever look at it from the perspective of the guest, of what they're dealing with as they come on vacation? And like this gentleman, I forget your name. Jack. Jack said simple communication, right? It wasn't simple. Some of these emails, I would scroll for days to find all the information, right? So simple communication, I think, is definitely key. What do guests want then? Do we ever ask us that question? What do our guests actually want? Do we ask them, what do our guests actually want from a communication perspective? Easy instructions, simple instructions, right? They want to receive the message at the right time. I received all of these about a week and a half before I arrived. The day of arrival, I didn't get anything, right? So I think thinking through that process of when guests are receiving information, I think is definitely key. Curated information, we want to know what we're going to be able to do, right? We already booked with you. We already are excited to come on vacation, but now we need to know what we're going to do on vacation, right? What, as you are the local experts, what are you going to provide me to make my experience grand, right? Vacationers have high expectations now, I think, and I'm even one of those, right? I know and I've seen what all of you guys do, and so when I go to a property manager, I have kind of expectations because I see what many property managers are doing, so I think that everybody does it, right? And then communication during their stay, right? Is there a way for them to communicate with you that they can get answers quickly? I think answering a phone is the slowest way to communicate with a guest in the world, and I'll explain that a little bit as we go through here today, okay? So like I said on the bottom, your guests are on vacation, they want exceptional stays. And I know we always talk about that in the industry, but are we providing that? Especially since COVID, I hear everybody like, I'm 100% booked out. I would like a gap in my calendar just to have a breath, right? So has our exceptional stays dropped, right? It's not always gonna be like this. You know, over the last 10 years, I've seen busy years, I've seen slow years. This may be continue, but are we prepared and are we continuing to deliver that exceptional stay to our guests? And I think one way is through our communication, okay? So, can somebody tell me what your email says on one of your emails? Give me an example of one of your emails. What does it say? Let's say your arrival instructions, gentlemen. What's your name?
David B.
David B. Awesome. I know you. Sorry, dude. I didn't even recognize you.
So I chuckled and said something to her because one of our arrival email says your door may be equipped with you might have to come in and pick up a key, or it may be equipped with a code. If it's a code, you will receive an email with your code information the morning of your check-in.
Okay.
But we still have people that are like, do I come by and get a key?
That word may, right? I'm like, what is it?
So we're going to have to change that.
Okay.
And so that's what our arrival thing says.
Okay.
And the other question I had, I don't know if you're going to answer this.
Go ahead.
Is what's the fine line with too many emails as your guests are coming in, or not enough? And then one of the issues I think we're having, we use Rubaru,
Uh-huh.
which we think is a great platform for both guest communication and the property guide information. But it comes in the form of a link
Mm-hmm.
to both their email and their text. And we find that a lot of people, it's swiped away and they
Yep.
can't find it later on for all of that information that they need.
Perfect. Yeah, let's talk about that soon, but that's definitely a good point that we want to talk about a little bit of, hey, we spend all this time curating this information and we think, oh, I finally did it, right? I got this email or this text message to go out and this is going to change everything. And then it doesn't, right? The guest still passes it by. And so there's some tricks that you definitely can do and putting kind of alerts. Sometimes in those situations you can create an additional one, and we'll kind of dig into that a little bit here as we go. But I want to talk a little bit about this book. Has anybody read this book? Oh, sad. I would read this book. This is my favorite book this year that I've read. I got to see her at another conference as a keynote speaker, Kinder Hall. So she talks about stories that stick and telling stories, okay? So I want to give you two examples of stories. So I'm a little bit of a storyteller. So the first one comes out of her book, and what she talks about, though, I believe it was Georgetown University did a study through their psychology department, and they wanted to see if stories and telling a story, connecting people through stories, would increase the price of an object, right? And so they went to the yard sales and they found different products and they put these all on eBay, and they did like products and they put it online for a little while without a description, just a description of what it was. And one in particular that caught my eye, they got this pony, one of this plastic pony from like 1980, right? And they put it online for like $2. Nobody bought it, right? It was just a description of when it was bought and what it was, right? They then told this story about a month later. They told a story about this little girl. She had this pony. She's all grown up now, but she would wait for her mom, and she would play with this pony on the windowsill. And they described this in this beautiful story setting of what this little girl did with this pony, right? Guess how much it went for? Any ideas? $183. $183. They bought it for $2. So connecting people through stories, I think, is very important. Okay, so I would recommend reading this. This is kind of a side note to what we're going to talk about, but the other one is a little personal story from my side. If you guys know me with my kids, I spend a lot of time with my kids. One reason why I like to work remote is I get to spend some extra time with them. But early on, when we started having kids, I recognized that kids love their mother, right? They always go to their mom when they get hurt. They go to her when they want a hug. They go to mom, right, for everything. And I was losing. And I don't like to lose. So I realized I had a talent that my wife didn't have, and I had told stories. So I would go in at night, and I would tell my kids stories, and I was like, it was all about them, and they were princesses or princes, and they were going on adventures. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to make this have a theme, and I'm going to talk about honesty or service, and try to talk to them about these adventures. They had to do something and have some kind of theme to it. And I would go in every night, and I would tell these stories, and they would get pretty grand, and I would get all over the place. And an hour later, we'd finally go to bed. But finally, my kids started asking for me to put them to bed. And I was like, I won. I finally won. I won one thing. And after that, I sat down on the couch in my glory and thinking, and I said, finally dawned on me. I lost. She planned this. She's on the couch already hanging out without the kids, and I'm putting the kids to sleep. But my kids love my stories, and it's something that we share with them. So stories do stick. And to this day, at 13 years old, my 13-year-old still wants me to tell her stories to go to bed. So stories definitely help. Now, I bring this up because we as property managers, we try to be professional, right? We try to get all this information. We got to have contracts going out. We got to have this information going out. Do we put our story anywhere to this guest, right? Do we try to lace that story throughout our emails and our text message somehow with our branding? Do we put that through that information? I think that can change a lot of that, and that can help excite your guests, okay? It's hard to do, right? And it takes time, and it takes some effort to do that, but I think it'll help people open up those emails and those text messages a little bit more. So, brings me to our next step in this. Communication plan. How many of us, by raise of hand, and if you're embarrassed, you don't have to, have actually sat down and mapped out all of your communication from the time that they book to afterwards? Tell me about it.
So we actually did, it's called Live Like a Renter.
Okay.
So we took some of our staff and had them the whole guest experience.
Hey, hang on, can you grab him the mic and hand it to him? I think the recording, they want us on the recording, so. Sorry, buddy.
That's okay. So we did this Live Like a Renter experience, and we had our staff kind of fill in those shoes. And so they booked online. They went through the whole process. We also use Rubaroo, great app. And
Thank you.
You're welcome, buddy. And so stayed in the cottages. They were, we wanted them to check out the cleanliness of the cottage, the ease of getting in, using Point Central, et cetera. And so afterwards, we regrouped and did a think tank session and talked about communication, housekeeping, cleanliness, et cetera.
Perfect. And has it helped?
A ton.
Perfect.
We were sending out way more information than we needed to.
Has anybody else done this? Tried with their team? Live like a guest ever? I love that idea. That's a great That's a great plan. So planning, I think, is everything, right? When I was with LiveRes, I would work with in implementation sometimes and training people on the CRM and how that works. And oftentimes I'd be like, hey, let's throw this email in here and let's do this. Oh, you have a problem with us? Let's throw another email at it, right? Is what we do. And soon they would have 15 to 20 emails. I've seen people in the system that have, 100 emails, templates that they got sent going out? It's a lot, right? So do we sit down and actually make a plan? So let's talk a little bit about what to consider to make your plan. And Richard back there did my whole slide for me. So what do guests want to receive, I think, is key, right? Have we thought about what our guests are receiving, what they're not receiving, what they have to receive, right? There are some things that we can't get around. We have to get them the contract. Those kind of things are a need. When and how do they need to receive it, right? Does this need to be a phone call, right? There may be instances that this needs to be a phone call. Does it need to be an email? Does it need to be a text message? What medium are we actually going to be using to do that? Priority, is it a high priority, right? And I want to touch on this one a little bit, high, medium, and low priorities. Someone brought this up, like David B., I think you just brought this up, right? Oftentimes our guests still are not doing anything with it, but are we putting anything to draw their attention that it is an important message, right? Someone came by our booth that says, hey, you know what, I'm sending out this, we have the guest link, and guests aren't clicking on it. We have a way in the Rubaroo system that when they click on it, they can see that you can see that the guest clicked on it. I said, do another message the day of arrival in the morning before they arrive and put on it, urgent, please read, just on the top, right? And then give the link again and see if it changes. The last person I did that, it was like 80% change in the other direction. There's still gonna be guests that don't open your email. There's still gonna be guests that don't do anything with your text message. But can we sway that one way or the other? And I think through high and low message priority levels, I think can change that. Your tone and styling. Does anybody change the way of their tone when they message? Do you know how to do that? Does anybody work on that? Do you know what I mean? Anybody can explain that to me? You're shaking your head yes. Explain it to me.
Just keeping it kind, simple. That's really all that comes to mind.
Okay. So as
Bold when you want to be serious.
okay, Bold it if we want to be serious. You know, we live in this text messaging world.
That,
Red when you're mad. Maybe there might be some instances we need to change the colors. Please.
We have Coachella out in Palm Springs.
Okay.
When Coachella comes, we have new noise ordinances.
Mm.
So we get very firm in our language when Coachella comes,
I'll-
noise and music.
So there's a time to be firm. There's a time to be kind and gentle. There's a time to make it bold, right? There's time to make it exciting. I'm a sales guy, and they always teach you sales, right, is mirror the guest, right, and what they're at. Are they excited? Match them, right, tone for tone. So tone, I think, is important, and we just talked about this. Are you branding it, right? Is your story laced in with that message somehow, right? And I think tone can bring that story in a little bit for you as well. So this is how I like to map things out when I'm working with a guest. I put a timeline. I like to see things visually. And so I like to map out, say, I want a message to go out at 15 days before arrival, right? I guess I got a laser pointer. 15 days before arrival, they're planning their vacation, what messages, maybe further out for some people. 7 days, a week before arrival, a day before arrival, on the day of arrival. What messages do we need to go at each of those instances? And so I like to map it out this way so I can see, and then I write below it, what message is it, right? And put it there so we know what's going out. Before I start to write anything, right, I need to know what it is. Kind of the subject line, you can have the subject line there, and that helps me kind of visualize what this guest, kind of that life cycle of the guest and that guest experience, what they're going to have, okay? So what to send? So this is a question David asked and some people back there. What to send when, okay? There is a limit of how many you can send to people, okay? But these are some of the main ones that I see. Booking confirmation obviously has to go out. Contract signing. Some people try to combine these at the same time into one email, so it's less. Some people like to break it out. And every company's a little bit different. So just because I throw this up here and this is what I think you should do, you can change it. This may be 7 emails here. It may be 10 for some companies, right? But trip planning, pre-arrival information, post-arrival, departure, and then post-departure, asking for reviews, following up with that. One thing I like to talk a little bit, because I am a sales guy, oftentimes when a sell happens, for instance, in Ruber when I was with LiveRes, everyone thought, hey, they signed the contract, the sell is done. The sell's not done, right? Ree knows this. Ree's the best salesman at LiveRes, by the way, in my mind. People stayed at LiveRes not because I sold them or gave them a demo or I had a good relationship with them, right? We had a good relationship. It was fun. I tried to make the demos fun, explaining stuff so they made a good decision. But really what made people stay was implementation, right? They spent 3 months, 2 months, hopefully less, but sometimes
longer.
Sometimes longer, right? That process was still part of the sales process in my mind. And very similar in your companies, think of this as an extension to your sales process. You market it on Airbnb, on your website, you finally got the guest to go there and book, you're not done. They haven't stayed in your house yet, right? These emails can have some kind of flair of sales in them as well. And what I mean by sales is solidifying that, making sure that they are your guest and they know who you are, they know your story, they know what this is about. It's an extension of your sales cycle. And when I think about it that way, it changes how I word things. It changes how I dramatize things and put different tones on these things. That's what these are for. Okay? So, who sends text messages? People that use Ruber do? Send text messages? Awesome. Perfect. How many don't send? Just send emails. Okay. So we have an option, right? We have phone, we have communication options nowadays. And so let's talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of each of them, right? Who can tell me a good email that gets looked at all the time that they use? Any of them that you really like, that you're proud of, that, please, I forget your name, sorry. Lori.
We have one that we send out 7 days before the guests arrive. It says, it's what to do in Highlands, and it just has a long list of, with links of things a long list of things they can do, and I tried to make it fun, so it says, you know, adventures right around the corner, and then the links are titles like take a hike, cast a line, get back on the bike. And it's just,
I like
you know, it gives them ideas of what they can do and links to find out more information about
Okay.
those activities.
Perfect, thank you. So there is a purpose for emails. Does anybody not like emails? I don't like emails. I don't send them. Actually, I do send them. Sorry, everyone in here, if I send you an email. Emails have a place, right? Oftentimes, nowadays, when you talk to Rubaru or some other text messaging platforms, they get a bad rap. The emails don't get answered. They don't get looked at, which is true. Now, let's talk about some pros about emails. So pros, emails are inexpensive. You can get on Google and send them for free, basically, right? You can send long form. You can put HTML in them. You can make them really, really fancy, and guests do like them. You can put attachments on them. There's lots of things there. The problem with them is they go into the spam box too often. I probably emailed every single one in here a couple times before this meeting, and I've only heard from about 10 people that actually saw the email, right? So historically, only about 20% of emails get opened, right? The rest of them, if they do get opened ever, it's like 3 weeks down the road when they finally have time to look at the emails, right? So there's a very low open rate, hard to keep up to date, right? Just like this company that I went to I'll tell you where it's in Outer Banks, right? They were dealing with COVID, so they added some COVID stuff in here. They had to make some changes, and so their messaging got a little convoluted, right, because of it. So it's hard to keep those updated, and it's a little bit hard to have the urgency for them to actually read it, because our thought with emails, and I'm sure you guys all do this as well, is I can get to it later tonight when I have a second. I have more urgent things to deal with than read my email, because there is a process, right? We have to go into our email, we have to look at the email, we have to click the email, and then we have to read, right? So there's a little bit of a step to get into each of the email. So think about that a little bit on the pros and the cons of it, but they do have its place because you can add so much information on there. So emails can serve a purpose for emails that need more information on them, okay? So why do I like text messaging so much better? Almost all guests nowadays, it says 90%, but I think everybody gets text messages, right? People are mobile, people want to use their phones, everybody has a phone, they're moving, they just don't have a computer, and they try to change things, but about 90% is kind of the average statistic on there. 78% already use text message, they want to. You can see this with other industries that are moving towards text. How many flew here? Everybody, right? How many, when you were getting on your flight, got a text message from your airline, right? I got some, right? Your flight delayed? Please, go ahead.
I don't remember getting that like a year ago. Is that
No,
something fairly new?
it's new. Yep. So text message is kind of this new form of communication. We've all been texting back and forth, but for businesses, it's been hard, right? Do any of you guys use text messaging and not a system to send text message? You send it through your phone. You guys do, okay? And it comes back to one phone. So what if you need another teammate to answer that? It's all on you, right, bud? So these are systems now that are starting to automate text messaging for us. This is one that I got from my hotel right here, right? So I was able to connect with Kate a couple times in my hotel when I was up in Minneapolis, and I had some questions. I forgot what time checkout was, so I just texted her real quick, got the answer when checkout was. So text messaging is an easy form for us to do this in, okay? Let me go back here. Okay, the other thing I like to show, this one I think is actually low, that guests prefer text. I think it's growing very quickly of who prefers to get a text message. It says 48%, I think it's closer to probably 75 now. If we did this, was probably done in 2018 when they did this. So people do prefer text. I had a few people be like, yeah, but I have older generation that comes in and they don't want to use text message. My grandmother's 95 years old. She can't drive. She doesn't call me anymore. She texts me. She can't hear. She can't see very well. She's an old lady. Love to talk with her, but if I'm not there, she lives in Wyoming, and I don't get to go there very often, but she likes to text because she can read it on her own terms and she can see what's going on. So even the old generation, they will read your texts, okay? Let's talk about some pros, and I think these are very self-explanatory, those that use text message. It can be short and impactful. It forces our tone to be more direct because we have a limited space to do this, right? So we can't build out these fluffy emails that have all this information in them, right? We have to be somewhat direct in our text messaging. They have a higher open rate. So this is one that kind of caught me by surprise. 90% of text messages, or 95% of text messages that get sent are read within the first 3 minutes of sending them. So if you need to get information to a guest and it's urgent, text message is the way to go. So look at the urgency of what your message is when you're mapping that out, and that'll be much better for you. The other thing, no spam. At least not yet, knock on wood, right? You send a message and you have the phone number of the guest, it gets to them. It's not going to a junk folder, it's not going anywhere, it's going to the guest and they're getting that. How many of you, I think I've seen a couple of you get a text message and you've looked at your phone while we've been in here, right? You can read a 3-line text message in a matter of seconds and get the information you need and still be paying attention to my weird conversation here. And staff can help. So there are systems out there. So for some of us that are just texting on a phone, it can be difficult because we got to keep that phone, or we have a staff phone that changes hands, right? There are systems nowadays that can do multiple guests at once, right? It's a unified inbox for text messaging, and you have a team that can come in and they can see it. 3 or 4 people can get notified about the text message, things like that. So there are systems now, and technology can make that text a little more user-friendly so we're not so scared of it, right? So again, my experience when I was out at Outer Banks with dealing with multiple guests at a time. How many of you guys are understaffed right now? Looking for employees to answer the phone, right? Or clean or whatever that is, right? So I was out there, I was prospecting, so I came in and announced to one of their offices, and there wasn't many people in there. They had one reservationist, and I sat there for 40 minutes because she had phone call after phone call, and she had 3 on hold, right? Our support team at LiveRes, we have a text feature. How many can you guys handle at one time? How many people are on chatting with 5, 6, 7 people at a time that they're working with through text messaging, right? I think you can probably handle 3 or 4 on a good pace, right, of people and be able to accommodate that. So having a way to do that right on their computer screen if they're sitting in an office or if you're remote driving around, I think is definitely key. But text messages have cons as well, right? They're a limited number of characters. You can't just send these long form text messages. You can't really send attachments. You can send pictures and things like that to them, but some of those PDF attachments are a little bit harder for guests to use on their phone. And sometimes it is difficult to convey tone. That's why I say this is more of like an urgent, it's a more direct, right? Think about how you talk to your kids or friends, right? It's not, hey, how are you doing? We're so excited. It's, here is your stuff that you need, right? We're a little bit more direct on this. So I like the way that you can do that, but it can be difficult to know, hey, do they know that I'm not yelling at them even though I put it in all caps, right? Any questions? Put a smiley face. Go ahead, please.
Make it very easier. Like my emails, it's easier to go back and find old emails where my texts get buried so fast.
Mm-hmm. So text can get a little bit buried in there, but where it's coming just from one phone number typically, and they haven't got 50 text messages from you, right? They're coming on vacation, they may have got 3, maybe 4 text messages. So if they know what phone number that is, they can go back to that phone number, and it can be a little bit easier to find it a little bit easier, especially for those real important information like door codes, things like that can be much easier for your guests through a text message. So any other questions before we keep moving? Sorry, I keep talking. All right, means I'm doing okay then. How much time have I got here? All right, we got some time, okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about mapping here and when and how to send these. Okay, we've talked about the benefits of emails, of text messaging. We saw a little list of those 7. So in what I like to see, and most of us do this, these booking confirmations and contract ones, these need to go by email. It's just easier. It's big emails, that's lots of information. Usually the guest is still 3 weeks to a month away, and so they're still at work, they're still getting emails, they're still checking their emails. So these two definitely can go by email. But as a guest gets closer, 15 days to arrival, we need to start transitioning to text messages. Maybe an email and text message, send it both ways for these ones. But, day of arrival, day before departure, these ones while they're on vacation, especially if you're messaging to your guests, send them by text message. Guests aren't looking at their text message. They're on vacation. They don't want to look at their emails. They're not looking at their emails. They're looking at their phone. They have their phone on them, and if you text them, they will see it, okay? So that's, from our experience, that's what is the best way to do this. Okay, so any questions so far? We kind of sped through that pretty quick here. So let's talk a little bit about what this gentleman here talked about, simplified text messaging and communication, right? Can you talk to me a little bit about that? What do you do to simplify it?
So in our guest communication, right when they book, they get a series of questions. So right when a guest books, they get a series of questions. It's five questions. What's your email? What's your phone number? Time of arrival, time of departure. Do you want the pool heated? And then we used to do just one check-in instruction email, and then we started having issues. So within 7 days, we have on the 7th day before they arrive, we send a check-in instructions, on the 3rd day, and then on the day that they arrive.
Okay.
And that keeps it really simple. Our ultimate goal is to have guests not have to call us and reach out all the time. If you provide the information simply enough, then guests won't have to reach out to you.
Okay, perfect.
If a guest reaches out, that's an error in our eyes. So
Excellent. So simplifying your emails and text messages, I think this is a big conversation. It's going to be different for everybody, right? One person, they might, and you guys know your guests better than I do, right? But I always look at one company when I think about simplifying things. I love hamburgers. Does anybody else love hamburgers? Does anybody know in here In-N-Out Burger? Oh, you got a lot of those, right? So I grew up in Wyoming and Utah. They didn't have In-N-Out Burger, and they finally moved into southern Utah when I was living down in southern Utah. And I went in there, and there's nothing on the menu, right? You're used to McDonald's. It's got 9,000 things on the menu, things like that. As I kind of started following this company, right? I started looking into it a little bit and their business practices and some of their things, and they're everywhere. They got an online page, they got followers, things. People have made up different things. It's just crazy. But they have a very simplified menu, and you come into there, and there's cars lined out around the block waiting to go into In-N-Out. And honestly, it's not really that great, right? They got good hamburgers. I think the fries are disgusting. But I still go there, right? I just offended these two gentlemen over here. Sorry, buddy. Sorry. But they've figured out something that people want it easy, right? And our guests in this industry want it easy as well. Think about that for a second, right? And think about the messaging that you're sending. Is it complicated? Is it large? Does it take them too long to read it, right? And I think that we'll see a little change in how often they call. Now, our industry is much more difficult than flipping a burger and frying some fries or making a milkshake, right? We have a lot more going on. We have a lot of different things that the guests have to do, but can we simplify it? And I think we can. Someone asked a question earlier, how many messages should you be sending to a guest? And let me see if I can remember where my message is. I think the sweet spot is between 7 to 10. If you're sending more than 10 messages to a guest, I think it's too many, in my mind. They get lost, they can't find them when they want to find them, and they'll get confused by what the information is. Please, let me know.
Total pre-check-in to post-departure?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Now, that's what I'm seeing on our side of things. There may be situations that there needs to be more messaging. And if there needs to be more messaging, I think move that to text I think guests can handle more text messages. If you're bombarding them with 13, 14 emails, I think that's when it gets too much. So if you can keep it in that 7 range, 5 to 7 on an email perspective, and then all your messaging, maybe 13 when you add in all your text messages, I think you're going to be in a pretty safe spot there. Okay. Anyone else have any examples of things that they've done in their businesses that have simplified that process or that's changed how many times a guest is called? Please.
So not only do we send an arrival email with driving directions, and I'm from Big Sky, Montana, and it's so sparse. Cell phone service is really iffy. So we include the address, driving directions, arrival, door codes, etc. But then we also place in each property a placard that, once again, reiterates all of that information, Wi-Fi instructions, and that's helped a lot. So you don't have people who say, I had that email, I don't know what happened to it. Tell me everything that was in there again. So just another form.
Thank you. Anybody else have any examples that they want to share with your friends and family here? Please.
What happens when your information is too large? We have a restrictive rental community, and we have to give like 2 pages of information by law. We can't send that in text.
Correct. How are you sending that right now?
Right now, it's done by email.
Okay.
But we have to send it multiple times because guests aren't responding that they've received it.
Okay.
We have to have a written confirmation that they've read it.
Okay. Anybody else have that problem that they have communities that have very big restrictions, and what have you guys done to solve that issue? Go ahead, please.
We're also sending out, our initial confirmation will go out, and then with our rental agreement, it typically contains the information from that particular HOA that some of them are just rules and regulations. Others include like almost a second rental agreement from that HOA that needs to be signed, and they
Okay.
go out through email, and it's a pain in the neck.
Yep.
Because they think, well, I already signed something, why do I have to sign something else? So it gets confusing to the guests.
There is some situations in these communities that there's not great solutions for, right? And I know you guys are super smart, and and maybe it's because we're so busy that we haven't found solutions for those places. But before I keep going, you had a comment on that. Go ahead.
Similar thing, when we send out the contract for signature, we attach either the HOA application or rules and regulations as part of it must be signed.
Okay.
So when it comes back, if it's not signed, we follow up with, you missed this particular part.
Okay. And are you following up with another email for that? Did they miss something? Okay.
We follow up with, you forgot something.
Okay. Anybody? Go ahead. So that's where that phone call comes in for you guys, is like, hey, we're not going to mess around with you missing another email. We're just going to call and make sure you get it. Okay? Okay. Has anybody tried on those ones? Hey, we send the email. Here's all the information. Maybe you're tracking them and they didn't get the information, and you follow up with a text message. Anybody try that? So again, I think those kind of things can come like, hey, we sent an email to you. Instead of sending another email that has the same information on it and maybe having it lost someplace, sending out a text message that says, urgent, warning, if you don't sign this, we sent you an email about a week ago. It was titled, this is the subject line in it. Please sign the documentation and get it back to us, or else. I've had some people that'll even say, hey, we'll cancel your reservation if we don't get it. Like it's that dire that they have to have that. So maybe try texting if you're not using texting right now. That could be a work as well. So any other experiences that you've had with text messaging or emails, types of communication that have been successful in cutting down how much your guests call you? Because that's really what I want to have happen with this. As you guys format these emails and text messages, that you get less people calling you. Anybody have any examples that they've done that? Please, let's go through Garrett, right? Okay.
We're starting to implement YouTube videos for using. We're implementing YouTube videos, links to that in our Rubaroo text that we send out for things that we get repeat questions on, like how to use the remote, how to use the thermostat, questions that are silly, super easy to answer, but people are in vacation brain, so making it as simple and not written instructions, but like a video.
A video. So you're using YouTube videos
Right.
for the solution.
Yeah,
And
we're
is that
just
working
starting-
for you?
We just started doing that.
Okay.
Because we are trying to figure out how to get rid of a lot of the phone calls, all the silly things that take up all our time.
Excellent. Does
They're linked into the Rubaru format.
okay. Bree, if maybe you can answer this. Does Liveris still have their community that partners can kind of chat back and forth to each other on there? Garrett, if you wouldn't mind, I think it'd be great as you see that work or not work, jump on that platform and the community dashboard, Liveris community, kind of share that with us and let us know if it's working or not for you. So,
We're a coastal community, and it's been a pretty active hurricane season this year and last year. So we utilize Rubaru. My emails to my owners letting them know that we're going to storm prep their houses, that goes out through email. But when I'm communicating with guests, it's always through Rubaru, through the text messaging, letting them know what the current weather conditions are, what we need them to do, or, you know, if worst case scenario that there's going to be something coming in and they have to leave. So that conveys an urgency to them. We also used it this past winter during the freeze that affected Texas to communicate the information we were getting from the emergency management community, letting them know when power was going to be shut off or left on, and same thing with water. So
Excellent.
that was very valuable to us.
So not to talk about Rubaru because you know, I don't want this to be a Rubaru demonstration for you guys, but just to let you guys know what she's talking about, we have a feature in Rubaru that's called alerts. That because we're with our integration with Liveris, we can pull in the reservation data, and you can simply say anyone staying that's in-house right now, whether it's a community or a certain number of homes, you can just have templated, pre-formatted, you know, warnings, storm warnings, things like that. Click of a button, it sends it out to all of them by text message or by email if you want. So we do have a feature like that. Go ahead, please.
So we are right on the Lake Michigan, and so Wi-Fi is always an issue. It goes in and out a lot, and that's where a ton of our calls come in. And it's the same thing. People just kind of forget that they need to restart a router or like what they would normally do at home. They just kind of forget that. So what we did was we just put like a Wi-Fi troubleshooting guide like on each refrigerator. And then we put on there that we will not take care of any Wi-Fi issues like after hours. And obviously, like if they call and it's completely out, we will. But it's more of just like letting them know that, hey, if you call about the Wi-Fi being out, we're most likely not going to take care of it right away. But there's all the steps to go through it for them. And it like completely cut down our calls on Wi-Fi this year. Right. So, yeah.
So this is a great example of using, you know, something that's not technology, putting something up in a home, but it still is communicating with your guest, right? So as much as guest books and digital guest books are amazing and text message and email, there may be times that it's just, they just need it in the home on a piece of paper that's stuck to the refrigerator, right? Sometimes that gets a little bit overwhelming because it's hard to keep those up to date, I think is the negative part of it, especially when you get a lot of properties is the only hard part about that. But if it's standardized and it doesn't change very often, those are also great ways to communicate with people.
We did that with refrigerators because we're constantly getting calls after people load their refrigerator that it's not working. So we have a really cute little sign of a dancing refrigerator on the fridge that says, "Hey, you just loaded me with all your stuff. It might take take a while for me to cool down," and it almost eliminated the fridge problem.
I love that. The thing that I notice here is that it's a little cheesy, it's a little quirky, right? You got this dancing refrigerator. It's okay to be that. We try to be too professional, I think, sometimes in this industry. And the thing that I love about this industry is that you can wear a suit or you can wear shorts to conferences, right? We can be laid back enough that we don't have to be these stuffy business people that, you know, or lawyers or whatever. No offense if any of you guys are lawyers, sorry. But we can be kind of ourselves. We can be laid back. People are going on vacation, and so they're okay with fun, unique, quirky things that go out, and if you put it in your emails, then that's okay. Be careful of going overboard with it and still be professional with it, but you can still do that as well. I wanted to kind of come back for a second. We have a few more minutes here to the videos, what this gentleman was talking about. Has anybody heard of Hippo Video or Boom Boom or Vidyard? So these are softwares out there. I use Vidyard is the one that I use. So basically what it does, if you're wanting to put videos on something in an email format, It turns on your camera. It's a Google plugin. They're like $20 a month. You click on it, and it opens up your video, and you can record a quick video, and it embeds it right there on your email for you, right? So one thing we didn't talk about very much is personalizing the information that you're sending out to guests. We try to make it standardized so we don't have to do much with it, but how do we personalize that information? And I've really liked using Vidyard. A guest gets it, but it is a little bit of work on your guys' end. So if you're a reservationist, hey, you have 10 check-ins today, they could sit there in the morning, hey, here's the video, and then they just send those out. It's a little video. They're not hard to record, but I do recommend when you do that, have like a whiteboard that says the guest name on it, that says hi guest, and you hold it here, and it gives that snapshot on the start of the video, and then it just drops and you talk to them, and the people typically click on it. So if you're needing something and people are not looking at text messages, they're not going emails, maybe a platform like that would be a good one for a couple of emails. It does take some work because you have to record them individually. You can do it, have a recorded one that's just standardized. I personally like the personalization. From a sales perspective, the more personal you can get to it, those of you that know me and I send you an email because you know me and we have a personal relationship, you typically open my emails if you're not too busy. So having that personalization on there, they know it's for them, they see that, typically they will click on those videos. So those do you want me to repeat what those ones were, those companies? So it's Vidyard, V-I-D, Yard. Hippo Video, so it's got a cute little hippopotamus there. And the one that I'm hearing really good things about is Boom Boom. B-O-O-M. B-O-O-M is the company. So those are the three main ones that I'm seeing right now for if you're wanting to have one-off videos that are easy to record that just automatically put it right on your email for you. Those are good videos as well. So any other comments, questions that you guys have today? All right. So what I want, and hopefully the recommendations we have is make a plan, right? We got to make a plan, sit down, take some time, maybe send your employees on a vacation to one of your homes so they can see how that process works. Can be great things. We have to start using text message a little bit more, but email still has a place. Don't just give up on email. You still need to use that. I recommend hiring a copywriter. David, go ahead.
Well, so you're saying Boom Boom?
Boom Boom.
But I used to use something called Bomb Bomb.
Maybe that's what it is. Bon. I don't use that one. I just heard about it the other day.
B-O-M-B.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay. And does it work?
Well, I used it when I was selling real estate.
Okay.
I would send it out to potential people saying, here's why you want to use me.
Okay.
And I would have postcards where I would say, here's statistics about your area. So it was like personal to that person.
Yeah.
But yeah, it worked.
Love it. Perfect. Thank you. Plug for Rubaru, digital guest books. Many of you guys are using this already. When we get, the reason digital guest book or a guest book that you print off and you have it, or a PDF that you're going to give to the guests through an email, because text message, when they get so much closer, is limited on characters, you have to be able to direct them to something that has the ample information. So creating a guest book or a digital guest book, I think, can solve a lot of those problems and have a place where your guests can self-serve and find that information, just like the Wi-Fi information or the refrigerator information. Those kind of things can be someplace that they can find all of that. So a little plug for guest books. I think they're important. I think it'll help cut down on how much calls you have. And automate as much as you can. We always talk about this. If you can automate it, automate it. Save yourself time. And then the last one that I want to talk a little bit before we're done here is revise your plan. How many have not looked at your email plan for a long time? I suggest doing it at least once a year. Relook at it, analyze it. Is it still working? Have we cut down calls? Is there places that we need to change that information? If we're not revising and understanding and evolving our communication plan, then we're missing out on something. So going back at least once a year to revise that plan of attack of what emails you are will definitely help. So thank you all. If anybody wants a t-shirt that participated, we have t-shirts over here. Come by our booth if you guys have any questions or want to talk more in depth about what emails you can send. Also, if you do want, we do have a series of 15 emails and text messages that I promised everybody you can have. I have it in a PDF. If you want to give me your email addresses, I'll shoot those over to you after the thing today. So, any other questions I can answer? You guys are awesome. Thank you.